Welcome to my channel Techify with Adil. So today in this video we will be learning about enrolling devices using Microsoft Configuration Manager. So deploying the Microsoft Configuration Manager client is the first step of this process. So Configuration Manager client installation of Windows computer allows not only the site to manage the device but ultimately allows both the IT administrator and the end user to benefit from what it can provide. So what are the benefits? So from the admin side, the client installation enables you to track the software present on the device, provide inventory information in relation to hardware, and manage and deploy the OS and LOB applications, line of business applications. With innovations in cloud management, many of these features are no longer restricted to use within the network perimeter. For an end user, some of the potential benefits include a feature-rich self-service catalog of software that empowers the user to choose software to install and the ability to configure his or her working hours to ensure interruptions are minimized. So as a endpoint, if you're a endpoint management from a team like desktop support and so on, you will know the importance of having a proper inventory of hardware, also maybe the software for tracking it and to check the status, even for the OS version update, patch updates, and all these cases. So our Microsoft Configuration Manager client benefits with providing all these informations. Then client deployment options. So what are the options to deploy the client, the MGM client? To successfully manage Windows computer using my configuration manager, you can deploy the client in several ways. So first one is client push. So this method enables you to deploy the client directly from the configuration manager console itself. Devices can be discovered through various methods. However, the most common is by using the Active Directory LDAP integration to locate devices in a particular OU. So our Active Directory, the computers host names are created under the OUs. So based on the organization, they will have a hierarchy or different OUs created for different kinds of different departments or different branches and so on. So you can integrate that OU to the console, and you can deploy or client push. That's called client push. You can deploy the client to those OU host. Once discovered, these objects can have client push initialized, which copies the files to the source computer and initiates the install automatically. So we are just integrating the OU to the console, and it will be pushing down the client, the copying the files to the computer, then it initiates the software installation. So one consideration with using the client push for large scale deployments is an increase in network traffic from the initial copy process. So if you have if it's some 500 MB or 1 GB of data, whatever it is, each time when it is copying to one computer, is going to create a traffic. So because it has to copy from source A, it may be your server or file location, from there to the client. So if it's copying for 100 users at the same time, or it's going to copy for 200-300 users at the same time, then it's going to create a big traffic in your network. That could be one of the disadvantage when it's being deployed for a large scale of users or large scale of host names. Next is the manual deployment. So this method usually involves the manual deployment of client installation source files accompanied by a script containing the installation parameters of the installation process. So the installation of the agent is typically executed from the ccm setup.exe file. However, it's also possible to install the client from the MSI, that is part of the client files. So when installed using either of the options, there are various client installation parameters that dictate how the client will be installed. So these parameters make up the part of the scripted install. So while manual scripted install archives the desired results when not used through an automation tool, this process can be somewhat time consuming as a delivery mechanism. So below shows as an example. So here you see CCM setup.exe, the SMS side code equal to auto, then CCM log max size is 10,000 and CCM log max history is 2. So with these parameters we are running the CCM setup exe file. Then OS deployment. So this method is one of the most common ways to deliver the client. So when installing and setting up the Windows using a task sequence, you can slipstream the configuration manager client into the Windows setup and provide it with the necessary installation parameters. So to use this method, a client must be installed when a device is built for first time. Therefore, it isn't appropriate for existing users. When it's being brought in as a new tool introducing into the organization, this might not work because it's done at the very first step when the PC is being prepared or built with software. Then Microsoft Intune. One of the more modern methods of facilitate co-management, Intune drives configuration manager client installation and registers the device with the cloud management gateway. So after it's installed, you can manage each perspective workload from either Intune or configuration manager. Then monitoring the Microsoft configuration manager client. After we have installed, we have installed it by any of the process we have seen in the previous slides. So once we have installed the configuration manager client on Windows and are connected to the site, you can monitor and manage the device directly inside the configuration manager console. Within the configuration manager console, there are a number built-in features like that are alert if a client is experiencing issues or could require further attention, like client online status. So it shows whether the client is online or offline. So if you like to push something or if you like to install something, then the client has to be online. So first thing, you can check whether the client is offline or online. So this is usually checked by it sends the ping like message. So if it does receive a reply, then it means the host or the machine is online. If it is not receiving a reply, then it's considered as the client offline. Then the client activity. So the site considers the client active if it has communicated with the configuration manager in the past 7 days. The site considers the client inactive if it hasn't done the following actions in last 7 days, like requested policy update, send a heartbeat message, or sent hardware inventory. So if any of these three is not being done, if it is not doing not done any of this for past 7 days, then it will be considered as the client inactive. This means totally the client wasn't active at all. Primary user. From the ECM console, you can see at a high level what configuration manager believes to be the primary user for this device. So this metric is calculated over a 60-day period of the most frequent logins. It will decide the primary user of a computer based on the criteria, like it will take a record of past 60 days frequent logins, and the most logged in user will be considered as a primary user. This will be more helpful when it's going for like shared machine, or the machine is like a desktop used in a lab or in R&D centers usually, or the machine is being used in some common spaces. So from this console we can able to find out who is the primary user, like, or the person who has access to this computer the most. Operating system built. So data exposed from the inventory performed on the machine enables you to see the OS version of the device without having a connect to the or perform any remote management. So just you can go to the console and see what's the OS version of the device. The state of the periodic evaluation that the configuration manager client runs on the device. The evaluation checks the device and can remediate some of the problems it finds. You can configure remediation not to run on specific devices, for example a business critical server or some VVIPs. So we can do the setup that it should exclude them from running the remediation. If there are additional items that you want to evaluate, use configuration manager compliance settings to monitor additional configurations. Device remediation is an example of a workload that can be utilized through co-management to enable the client to be evaluated regardless of how the device was brought into the hierarchy. Windows Intune also offers device compliance on the path to modern management, but the subset of non-compliance actions is still evolving. For this reason, co-management using configuration manager for remediation is often the most appropriate choice in most advanced scenarios, such as making file or configuration changes to allow remediation for compliance. So managing the Microsoft configuration manager client. So when the configuration manager client installs on the device and successfully assigns to the site, you see the device in the asset and compliance workspace in the device node. Once in here, the device is likely to join one or more collections from which to be actively managed from. So what's a collection? So collections are the way of configuration manager to represent devices or users that have some degree of commonality, like based on some common or things in the devices or users is being grouped into called collections. So this can be derived from a query such as OS type, exclusively placed together, or the same application present. Once in a collection, you can perform several tasks such as target deployment or run a report. When a device is either in a collection or selected directly from the devices pane, there are many management actions that you can access from the right-click context menu. Some options can be selected on the per collection basis or individual object. So the below are the some of the most common options that's actually in the left side in the slide. So you can see the client action start resource explorer. So what it does is review inventory information about a device such as OS information, memory, applications installed, and so on. Then start policy retrieval means execute some of the previous client actions locally direct from the site server. Add to a collection. Add the client directly to a collection such as installation collections from the object itself. Client setting RSOP. So review current client setting for a given endpoint. So these are some of the collection basis.